Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak, Graphix. And now, let's get on with some more things right here. As a matter of fact, I'll be doing a marathon for a little bit, so you know what? Let's just say that things are going to be a little uptight here, because we're going to be talking about some other games around here. Starting with this one for number 814, Metro Exodus. This is at the time the latest entry that we had into the Metro series, the main Metro series, which had been around since the early 2010s, and was originally based off of a Russian novel, Metro 2033. Dmitry Glubakovsky basically published this novel upon the fact knowing that maybe someday we'll be experiencing some sort of apocalypse, and it could be nuclear related. But the story itself involving Metro in the heart of Russia in 2033, 2 decades into the future at the time, but now it's going to be at least 10 years from now. So who even knows what that's going to be like. But anyways, Metro Exodus, being the third game in the series, started off with basically Metro 2033, which came out in 2010, and then Metro Last Light, which came out in 2013. And then the following year, there would be Metro Redux, which would then be a port to the PlayStation 4. It would basically be an HD remastering of both of these games, suitable for the PS4 itself. This was also something that I was able to play some time ago, and I will say for sure that both of the older titles themselves were pretty nicely done for the time period, at least for something from 2010 and then something from 2013. These both did have quite a few things that they could potentially offer by any means, including FPS capabilities, quite a lot of exploration, and quite a lot of storylines with details of all sorts that you could potentially uncover in quite some time. Then, of course, there was Metro Exodus, which was pretty much longer than both of them, and was at the time the latest in the series, but it was indeed the first one that I actually played back in September of 2020, almost a whole year after it came out. So at least for something like this, for a third Metro title, a sequel to the others, it does a pretty nice job right here. It initially starts off with Artyom, our famous Russian protagonist from this game itself. This series overall, Artyom has had a lot of things going on, tons of mileage to take place, and with the majority of the other main characters around, that really does show quite a lot of things that you could potentially do with a certain franchise like this. But the thing about Exodus is that it actually is about the majority of the entire army that have been established. The forces known as the Spartans are wanting to leave this barren wasteland, the icy caps of Russia, in search of a new home with plenty of other things that you could potentially look out for. And with plenty of things that are necessary to find a good home with food, water, supplies of all sorts. Mostly, though, to be free of the radiation that have been affecting the area for two solid decades. As the game pretty much begins, you are given quite a few things out there to pretty much look forward to, including how to use your weapons, and including how the game mechanics work. The controls of all sorts are shown to you in a nice way, and you eventually get used to them. But then you come across a train yard. A train yard, of course, that you would be able to use to find a good locomotive and get out of that location, to be able to get back to the base where you originally came from. But it is important to note, as the game does progress, the way that all the main characters are hoping to get out of there alive and try to find their new home somewhere in the country, there are plenty of roadblocks that get in the way. Plenty of new areas for you to get to, and for you to go explore and do plenty of other things out there in order to progress the story entirely. And this game really does try to do as much of a good job as possible with ton of things out there, including collecting ammo and weapons of all sorts, with a big variety for you to try out. From assault rifles and shotguns to revolvers, and even an LMG, and a variety of other unique weapons that are very different apart from many other FPS franchises that we've already gotten to know about. But again, you got plenty of different worlds that you come across throughout the game. Also, tons of enemies of all sorts. Both human hostiles and even hostile creatures. Yeah, it's a lot like with what had happened in the earlier Metro games, where there were certain mutations that had happened in certain animals, or there were, of course, a lot of things relating to certain attacks that would take place. And tons of animals show up in this game. And you got a lot of them that you face off against, like bears, frogs, fish, and a ton of other things as well, like ginormous behemoths that dwell the wastelands of Russia entirely. So it is fair to say that we're probably going to be expecting some things like this if we were to get a Metro 4. But you know what? That probably would not happen by any means. Because by the end of the game entirely, where Artyom and Miller, they end up coming across something rather interesting, but unfortunately, both of whom die from extreme radiation poisoning. And by the end of the game, it's fair to say that that's just pretty much what that is. Exodus ends off on a note where both the main characters pretty much are left for dead. So, that's seemingly what you can probably get out of the whole entire game itself. But at least for the latest entry in the Metro series, it certainly was pretty well done. And I will say that graphically it's probably not the greatest we could have probably seen out of a game like this, but at least for something from 2019, it probably was pretty good by any means. But who knows what we could potentially get here. As there was, in fact, a Metro Exodus DLC pack known as Sam's Story. And at some point in time, if we were actually able to get another Metro game out there, then who even knows what we would start off with, because the death of Artyom is pretty much going to leave out a lot of voids that probably won't be filled very easily. So it's fair to say that we probably won't be seeing a Metro 4, maybe, for a while. Until, of course, they can figure something out. They maybe can, they probably won't, who knows. So, until that happens, we're just going to simply wait around, see what else we can get in the FPS series that we have. An FPS genre really does have a lot of mileage and plenty of other creative opportunities for people of all sorts. There's not a lot of boundaries, so of course, you can have plenty of experience with these things if you have a lot of time on your hands. So, that's pretty much all I have to talk about for today. So, you know what? That's just probably what this is going to be about. So, if you want to see more, go down to my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.